Hi people, it's Ellie here, and I have my tea, so you know what that means. It's another episode of Tea Time! Sorry for the lack of these reviews, guys. I've been in a really bad reading slump, but right now for you I have 2 reviews, so let's just get right in. The first part of this review is for Veronica Roth's book, Insurgent, from the Divergent series. It's the second book in the series, so if you haven't read Divergent, go do that and watch my review of the book Divergent, which I'll have a link in the down bar. I read Insurgent, well, I finished Insurgent back in December, which is a long time ago. I know, I'm sorry I didn't make a review video for it, but I didn't feel like I had enough to say about it on its own to make a separate video, so I waited till I finished Allegiant to talk about it. If I'm gonna be completely honest, bits of Insurgent, well, pretty much the whole book of Insurgent is really fuzzy for me. I felt very bored with the book, and it was really hard to get through, and I just wanted to finish it and move on to Allegiant and finish the series. I liked Divergent, the first book in the series, but something about the last 2 I didn't really like. I don't know. I honestly don't like Triss as a character. I don't like her at all, actually, so it made it really difficult to get through the book. And I thought part of this world that she lives in is so underdeveloped, if that makes sense. Like, Veronica Roth could have done so much more with this world, but she didn't, and she kept it very simple, and I felt like it really hurt the series. Honestly, since I can't really say anything good about Insurgent, and I can't really remember much of it, it's just a big blur, just an in-between bit that kind of sucked, I'm gonna move straight on to Allegiant. Now, Allegiant, I finished like 4 days ago, give or take, and it was better than Insurgent, I will give it that, but it definitely wasn't not as good as Divergent. Once again, this book picks up right off where Insurgent left off, and fair warning, this will have spoilers, so if you haven't read this book or the rest of the series yet, please do not watch this until after you've read it, because I can't really talk about it without giving spoilers. Sorry. This is the only book in the trilogy that has a different point of views. You switch back and forth between Triss and 4, and right away that gave away so much of the book. Maybe just because since I'm a writer I can infer things. Right, I think it was the second chapter when you found out that 4 is also a narrator, and that gave away the ending for me. I knew right away that either Triss or 4 was gonna die, and since she added in 4's point of view, I figured it was gonna be Triss, and I was right. Spoiler! I warned you. Yeah, I didn't like that it went back and forth. I figured it would have been harder, but she definitely could have done this book all through Triss's point of view, and I wish she did, because it would have saved the ending for me. And she did the first 2 books just in Triss's point of view. If she did it in 4's point of view as well, it would have made more sense, and you wouldn't have ruined the ending before you even got there. Like I said before, when I read Insurgent, I didn't fully understand the characters. I was just kind of reading it to read and didn't really like the book, and it didn't really interest me. But I felt in Allegiant you got to know the characters more, and I figured out who they were, besides like the main characters that you always see and you're always with. The last like third of this book, I thought she could have done so much better. I'm sorry that I'm just ragging on this whole trilogy, this whole review, but honestly, I probably wouldn't pick these books up again. I didn't really like it, and maybe I'm just comparing it to other trilogies I've read, but I just couldn't relate to it, and I know everyone loves it. And Divergent, the first book, was really good, and I'm still gonna see the movies, but I just wouldn't reread the series, and I'm not fully in on the hype everyone else is. I feel like the world she built up in this book, I don't remember exactly when you found out what happened outside of Chicago, but she could have done so much more with that, and she could have explained it more, and she could have got more thoroughly into detail, and she just could have done it so much better than she actually did, and And that was one of the things that really turned me off from this book that I did not like. I think I've said this already, but I don't like Triss at all. I can't relate to her, and I don't see where she comes from half the time. And when you added in For's perspective, I don't really like him either. They're so dry and dull, and I felt like I was just reading this book to get through it and to say I've read it. I just don't like it. I don't know what else to say except I don't like it, and there's so much more that could have been done. The very end, where she switches back and forth between Triss with the death serum and trying to do whatever they were doing, I was still really fuzzy on what she was trying to do in there in the first place. And for talking with his mom and giving her the ultimatum, I feel like she could have done that so much better, and it was really unnecessary. Like, you didn't necessarily have to see what happens before. I feel like she could have done this whole book in Triss's point of view and then have the epilogue in For's point of view, and it would have made so much more sense, and you could have just had his feelings about everything instead of going back and forth, because they're just both such dry characters and they didn't really have much development to me, and I couldn't relate to either of them. That being said, when Triss died, I didn't cry. I thought I would, but I didn't. Maybe it's because I didn't have enough connection to the characters or the storyline in general, but I didn't cry, even though I can see how people would. It's a very emotional scene and very powerful when she sees her mother. And at first, when her last chapter ends, you're kind of like, wait, did she die? Because her mother's there, but what's going on? But she did die. Only you don't find that out right away. Like, you go back to For's point of view and you're kind of stuck in this like muddy section for like a chapter or two where you don't know where For doesn't know what's going on, so you don't know what's going on. And you don't really find out until the very last chapter, or maybe even the epilogue, I can't remember. Overall, this book and the trilogy in general, I honestly wouldn't recommend. I hate saying that because I'm such a big book lover and I love giving books a chance, but I honestly wouldn't recommend it. Maybe Divergent, and if you like Divergent, you can move on from there and decide for yourself, because I just feel she had like such a great world she could have went off of, but she didn't handle it well enough, and it was a flop for me. I'm sorry. You hate me now. I'm sorry. I just didn't like it. Anyway, that's it for this tea time. I hope you guys liked it. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up and tell me down below what you thought about the whole Divergent trilogy and whether you liked it or not, because I don't want to be the only one that didn't like it. Make sure to follow me on Tumblr, Twitter, Instagram, Vine, all my social media sites within the down bar, and most importantly, make sure to subscribe because I post new videos every Wednesday in addition to tea times like this where I give you my reviews, and even if they are honest, you'll get them. And that's it, so I'm gonna go. Bye. I'm really sorry I didn't like this series. I feel really bad for saying that on camera, but I'm not gonna lie to you. Now you know that.